and I'm delighted to be co-hosting today's discussion with Adam Stoehr. He's our Vice President of Education and Research at Excellence Canada. And our topic today is, what day is it? How to maintain happiness at work when work is not the same as it ever was. And with workplaces operating differently for the past few weeks now and foreseeable future, and employees trying to manage the new phenomenon of quarantining, social distancing, working with kids at home, and more, in just a few weeks, we have seen workplaces quickly respond to the pandemic and manage the crisis by transitioning to a new way of working, while at the same time trying to maintain business operation. And Adam has some great insights for us on this topic, with practical tactics, tips, and recommendations for encouraging and supporting employees during this time. And our speaker for today is Adam Stoehr. Adam has been with Excellence Canada for 21 years. He's one of Excellence Canada's primary facilitators and speakers, and he researches and typically speaks on topics such as employee happiness, strategy, customer experience, leadership, process improvement, and all forms of quality management. He has a PhD in business strategy from the University of West of England, Bristol Business School, and his published thesis explores the relationship between a strategic approach to quality and employee happiness. And today he'll talk about happiness at work in our current pandemic environment. So welcome, Adam.
Hello, hello. So I also have hair that looks nothing like my actual profile pic that's down there. So anyway, go ahead, Erin.
And that's part of what you're going to talk to us about today, right? You're going to speak to us today about things like filling our quarantine cup and why owning our real root color or growing a beard can help us right now.
That's right.
Let's start by setting the context, Adam. What is happiness at work, and what is your take on what employees are experiencing right now?
All right, great. Let's get started with that. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We have a bunch of people on the line, and got some tips and some tricks for you to maybe get you through some of these tough days that we've been going through lately. So let me get started with just a definition of happiness and what it is and what it's not. So if you've heard me speak before, and you've seen some of the stuff that I've published before, you've likely seen these three circles, and they don't change even in this environment. This is what happiness at work actually is. It's a combination, it's a complex subject, but I've tried to simplify it with these three circles. We've got satisfaction, we've got engagement, and we've got morale. And happiness is actually the thing that lives right in the middle of these three circles. We've got that little upside down triangle in the middle of the circles. So when those things overlap, we have the ability to be happy. Let me just kind of define them. Satisfaction quickly as the baseline. It's a cognitive measure, and it gives you feelings of like things that we like at work. So things like our job features, our pay, our level of supervision, they're important levers when we're talking about satisfaction. Talking about engagement, the bottom circle there, it's a little deeper. It's actually referred to as an affect measure in terms of measurement. And if I called satisfaction as things that we like at work, then engagement is things that we love at work. And deep feelings of importance and the work and the meaning of the work drive that lever. The morale circle is the one that relates to group feelings and shared measure, and it emphasizes membership. It emphasizes organizational culture. And morale, actually, as I looked at this research a few years ago, was the most fragile of the three measures. And that's basically what happiness is. Here we are now, though, in an environment that looks a little different than it did 5-6 weeks ago, where we're now surrounded by, this COVID-19 coronavirus. But happiness still lives in the middle there somewhere. And satisfaction, for example, on the top left is under extreme pressure in 2020. I said it's things like pay, level of supervision, and so on. Basic job features like pay, training, and recognition. You're lucky if you're getting a paycheck at all in the last 4 weeks. And you're super lucky if you're getting anywhere near what you usually get. So that circle is under attack. The engagement circle is also under attack. It's harder than usual because strategy horizons are very blurred and fuzzy in terms of organizations. We've kind of shifted from purpose to survival. If you think about what's been going on the last few weeks, and there's a lot of uncertainty on how I can contribute. So engagement's all about using your skills to the fullest intent. And we can't really do that because we're not really sure the direction that we're going on. And that morale has been crushed in the last 4 weeks. We're talking about collaboration, group effort, culture, and that kind of thing. I've only seen 3 other people in my house in the last 4 weeks, and I work with none of them. So it's really tough with this social distancing, or at least physical distancing, to keep morale strong with this social distance and the isolation that we've been dealing with. So things like social committees must work extra hard and be really creative about how to collaborate. And we've had the emergence of things like this, the Zoom meetings that we've been joining in on. And I know if you're like me at first, they're like, oh my God, this is so cool. And now I've got a million Zoom meetings in a day, which is fine. So here, I've drawn a picture that's a little different with my circles in our current environment. So here we are, this virus has come in, taken the circles, and actually separated them. So happiness has no chance to live, or less of a chance to live. This target was already small. In fact, I did the original research that I did back in 2017 suggested that very few people live in the middle of those circles anyway. In fact, at the time, it was 26% of Canadians are happy at work in the way that we define it, with strong levels of morale, satisfaction, and engagement. The other 74% were somewhere in between actively grumpy, and that was 18% of the population. And then 56% of the population were generally not happy. So I'd love to do this study again, and I might in the next couple of weeks send out some surveys to try and learn about how that lives in today's environment. But I bet you, just my hunch is that the numbers would be a lot worse. So Aaron, that's basically the answer to that. That's what happiness is. That's where we're at. That's where happiness is in terms of this era that we're in with these stupid virus. I'm sick of seeing this little picture. So with the little horns that are coming out of the circles. But anyway, that's what's going on.
Yeah, I never thought non-scientists would know so quickly what a virus looks like.
For sure.
So it's a pretty overwhelming stat that you just mentioned on those people who make up the majority, who are actively grumpy, somewhere in between actively grumpy and generally unhappy. So not that fun of a place to be, really. And I think what you're going to talk to us about next is really, what do we do about that? What can we focus on so that we are happier at work? Or if we are managers of teams and team members, how can we set a good example, and how can we encourage happiness across our teams? So tell us how people can improve their own happiness at work.
For sure. That's what I'm going to talk about next. And that's what I teased in some of the little things that I was putting on the Excellence Canada Instagram and stuff like that. So for the fans of sessions that I've run in the past, just a teaser here. I've got a song coming. I've got a song that I reworked the words. But so we're going to talk about 3 things in the next little bit. And these are tips for you. And I've given them playful titles just to make them a little bit more memorable. But I'll explain these maybe abstract concepts and see how they all tie together. But here are the 3 things that you can do this week, in the weeks to come, until we get back to normal, to recenter yourself on these circles. We basically take the picture that I previously showed you and push the circles back together. We want to push them back together so that there's a chance to be happy. And even, the stats that I was just saying, Aaron, around happiness, no one lives in that center every single day. Right. It's not a fact. So you kind of move around these circles, but if they're not pushed together, there's no chance to get to the middle, right? So we want to push them back together and have a chance to get there, at least for part of our week. All of us deal with issues and have some sadness in our life and have some really tough things to deal with. So that's not what I'm trying to overcome. We all move around, but there's no chance if the circles aren't together.
Yeah, makes sense.
So that's what we're going to do. So here they are. We're going to talk about how you need a quarantine cup. So I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. I've already kind of practiced my second one pretty well. I've got my hair as bushy as it possibly can be. I'm way overdue for a haircut, and that's fine with me. So you need to grow out your hair, no matter the style or color. So we'll talk about that. And then the last one is you need to learn how to play Alexander Hamilton on the piano. All right. So these 3 things will help push these circles back together. So are we ready to go on this, Erin? Yeah.
Interested to hear more, Adam. Go for it.
Okay. All right. Let's go into the first one, which is what I call the quarantine cup. Okay. So quarantine cup. This, of course, is the Stanley Cup. A quarantine cup revolves around this quote that I've pulled. Happiness is not about getting what you want, but it's about learning to enjoy what you get. So here's the Stanley Cup. I'm so sad that the Stanley Cup is not being played for right now as a huge hockey fan. And of course, my beloved Toronto Maple Leafs should be winning that cup this year. But happiness is not getting what you want, but it's learning to enjoy what you get. So this is actually the quarantine cup right here. So let me tell you a little bit about it. The situation, this life we want, people typically think that happiness is about getting things, about getting what you want. And people usually associate it with stuff. This is what people typically do. And I'll be happy if I get this job. I'll be happy if I get this car. I'll be happy when I'm in this situation. I'll be happy if I get this life. So that's kind of the mindset that we have to squash, because it's not what it is. It's more at the tail end of that quote. It's about learning to enjoy what you actually get. So in these times, learning to enjoy what you get is important. So let me tell you where the quarantine cup came from in my house. This is actually the quarantine cup. Like I said, this is it. It's a dollar store cup that, we had lying around for whatever reason. And I decided to make it a big deal in our house. So let me tell you that story. My son's a rep hockey player. And like most of the people on the line with kids right now, it was really devastating. Pretty much the first couple of weeks of quarantine, all of the information started coming in about our kids' sports, right? Everything was canceled. It's no different for my son. His rep hockey team was in second place in the standings, and they were just peaking at the exact right time. They were doing so well that we all thought that they were going to win the championship. And of course, we got word that the season was canceled. No games, no championship. Next season's in question. And it's no different from how a lot of us are feeling about our favorite things at work, our favorite things in life. Most things are being canceled at work. So let me talk about that in a second, but I want to give you more about the quarantine cup. So I took this idea of the enjoy what you get, and my son and I I wanted to reframe this goal and reframe this aim and reframe this achievement, and we reframed this thing, and it turned into what we called the quarantine cup in our house. And it was a 7-game series of mini sticks that we played in my basement. And here's a picture of my son after he won the quarantine cup. Now, what I didn't think about was that he's a way better hockey player than me, and he's really competitive. So he has the broom there because he swept me. The quarantine cup only needed 4 games. Because he beat me in 4 games in a row. Let me show you how serious he was about this.
Yeah! It's a championship! Oh my God.
There we go. So he took it seriously. See the sweat in his hair? This was a real, it was 11-10 that final game. I bet you, at one point I was winning that game. I think I still deserve it. I think we need a video replay on some of the plays. But anyway, he did sweep me 4-0. Sorry, I wish it was 4-1. So let me get back to kind of the circles and the happiness thing. In happiness, this is all about engagement. Many of us are not tapping into our usual skills and talents at this time. And that really hurts in the engagement bucket, where you're not being utilized to your full extent, your full potential. We're either not working at all, or we're being redeployed somewhere else, which doesn't tap into our typical kind of skill set. So the quarantine cup, whatever that is for you, has to be something that taps into your skills and talents that increases your levels of engagement. So in this case, it's a silly, playful example of my son playing in the basement. But at real life, at work, it's serious business. And that's what I wanted to talk about a little bit. It's not getting what you want. Work's been canceled. We've had reduction and elimination of pay. We're all literally living with this, trying to pay our mortgages and trying to pay our rent or whatever the case may be. And our future is in question. Will things get back to normal? And when they do get back to normal, am I even going to be involved in that? So in all seriousness, this is a big deal. And whatever your quarantine cup is, it's your reframe, your repurpose. Organizations can help with this. They can form some big picture stuff like, transparent communications around vision, mission, and goals. So if you want to use your skills to the full potential and want to maximize that, you have to know where we're going. So it can't be fuzzy. It can't be, survival only. We have to actually have a vision to get out of this current state that we're in. So more strategy work would be helpful in terms of sense of purpose, and more effort in identifying people's strengths and assigning work to those individuals that aligns with where we want to go in our new future. If you're doing the same thing that you were doing 3 weeks ago as an organization, then you're going right off the rails. You have to adjust and shift and make a new plan forward. So that's it. Aaron mentioned that you're going to have some homework here, and so this is going to be available to you guys as a one-pager, where I've listed 2 questions for each of my strategies. The first one being build your own quarantine cup, whatever that is for you. So this will take some reflection, and your quarantine cup's going to need these 2 questions. What can we deconstruct and reinvent in the work that I'm doing? And the second question is, even if it's only temporary, where can we take our key skill sets now to meet new needs at work? And those 2 things will help you get started on this. I know in my role at Excellence Canada, things have changed significantly in the last 5 weeks. We needed to figure out how to deliver our usual content in different packages. I'm typically in airports going from, city to city, organization to organization, helping them kind of understand what it takes to be excellent. And my quarantine cup is a successful online delivery of Excellence Canada training services, which, by the way, you guys are witnessing right now. I hope you're enjoying it so far. You have to. Things are not going to be getting face-to-face anytime soon, and we need to adjust and pivot, and that's my quarantine cup. Okay, so that's number 1. I've got 2 more of these things. The second one was about how you need to grow out your hair, and I don't think that's a problem because all the barbershops and salons have been closed. So let me share another quote with you to introduce this idea. Here is my dude, William Shakespeare, and he has the most incredible flow in this picture, bald on top, long on the sides. Just a beautiful illustration of William Shakespeare. And I like his quote too, where it's all about, there's nothing either good or bad, but thinking that makes it so. So I'm going to use that quote and talk about this whole grow your hair out. I know I don't have much problem with gray hair on top of my head. I got some in my beard, but I know there's some people who live in my house one person who lives in my house that wants to go to the salon so bad to take care of some roots and things like that. I'm just growing it. I'm embracing it. This is going to be, I'm going to have some Shakespeare hair. I'll hopefully have some on top, but I'll have the big flow going outside. That'll look good under my hockey helmet in the weeks to come. So that flow is incredible. Let me talk about this idea of, here I am with my hair way out of control. So my hair is unkept. I have unwanted gray dominating. This might be a reality for you guys right now. I know anybody who's in their late 30s and up are a little worried about this right now. And my suggestion is let's embrace it. Let's embrace it. And I'll share the strategy. So I embraced it here, and I made the cover of GQ magazine, as this picture suggests. And the title is that gray is okay. And the whole gist here, in line with that Shakespeare quote, is that multiple versions of reality exist. And happiness is about choosing the things to focus on. So we are happy if we focus on the positives of a situation. I already kind of outlined why that's hard right now. It's kind of obvious why it's hard. But there are some positive ththings going on right now. And there's a lot of things to be grateful for that we need to rally around. We have to. So we're happier if we focus on the positives of those situations. So you basically have to grow your hair out. So in the environment of this virus and our happiness at work, we have to kind of embrace the fact that our brains are the architects of our own reality. We shape it. So the things that you focus on are the things that matter most. And in terms of happiness, this is how we react to things. If we sit and watch news clips all day online, I've been caught doing this. I'm guilty of doing this myself. But we might convince ourselves that the world's going to end. Just negative clip after negative clip, clip of this politician, clip of that politician, just over and over again, just hammering you with ideas about how things are never getting back together and never going to go back to normal. So another thing I'm addicted to, which I encourage you guys to check out, and I'm sure you have because it's gone viral, is some good news. Those clips that have come out by John Krasinski from The Office. I love it. And it's just total positive stories about what's going on in this time to help, amazing stories of strength to help overcome some of our situation that we're facing now. So focus on those things. And again, it's easy to say, it's harder to do. Because, this is the reality that most of us are facing right now. Those of us working from home, like myself, I've got a couple of kids, not quite as young as this one in the picture, that want my attention, want my time during the day. And, I have to kind of set some boundaries around my office so that I can get some work done. Work is different. We're all working from home. We're all balancing new responsibilities. So what I'm suggesting that you do in line with growing your hair out is people tend to focus on and have meetings about problems and what's going wrong at work. And that's happening even more now than it typically does because lots of things are going wrong. So if you look at a typical work week, count the hours that you're focused on problems, you might be surprised at how high a percentage of your time is being spent on problems. So I'm not saying ignore the problems. We had Marianne Baton on here last week, and she had a really good point, and I'll just reiterate it, that when you are faced with a problem and something negative in your day, you need to own it and embrace it and give it some time. But the key thing here is to give it limited time. So we need to face a problem and maybe just count, 5, 10 minutes. That's it. Maybe even write it down. So put it away. Here's the problem. Here are a couple of solution ideas that I have. Now put that away and embrace, the positives that are going on. Don't ignore those opportunities, but give equal weight to the strengths. And our brains will become that architect of our reality, and we might have the ability to create our own happiness even in this kind of strange environment. So here's your homework for this one. If you want your hair to look like Shakespeare there, or mine in that previous picture, here's how you would lessen the worry about your grown out hair, no matter the style or color. Question 3 on our homework is, what are 5 things that you're grateful for right now? So just a basic gratitude homework assignment, some basic things that you're grateful for. And the fourth question there is, what is something that our organization needs right now that I can rally around? So if you're in all these problem meetings and you know that your skill set lends itself to help solving that problem, then maybe we can actually make a list of things that I can rally around, and that'll boost your confidence and happiness. So for me, gratitude, it's easy to see what I'm grateful for around, around these times. I'm usually flying around the country, like I said, spending nights in hotel rooms. And the last 5 weeks, I've been stuck in my house with my 3 favorite people. It's definitely something to be grateful for. I've never had this before in the last 21 years working with Excellence Canada. I don't, having 5 weeks in a row without any travel it hasn't happened. Having 1 week in a row is hard to kind of pull together. So I'm super grateful for that. And, we're able to count those good moments. And of course, there's things that I'm not so happy about right now, but, we want to balance that piece. Okay, third thing. And the third piece, this is the one that might sound the most abstract, is that you need to learn to play Alexander Hamilton on the piano. Okay, so this is the last tip. This is a picture of my keyboard. My daughter got a keyboard for Christmas a bunch of years ago, and we play around with it sometimes. I'm not a piano player by any means. So one thing I decided to do was I wanted to learn some of my favorite songs on the piano in the last 5 weeks. So I spend 10 minutes a day trying to figure out, with the help of YouTube and with some chord progressions and things like that, how to fiddle around on the keyboard. So that's the kind of the strategy that I'm suggesting for you, in quotes, of course, like the other two. And the reason for it is because we're often lost in the past or worried about the future. And of course, happiness lives in the present. We know that. So we want to be in the present. So here is what we've been dealing with the last few weeks. This is my daughter, and here's the question. And the title of this session was all about what day is it? And I guarantee you've all had that feeling in the last bunch of weeks, is that if you've asked yourself what day it is, you've in the last 3 weeks, then you're falling into what I call the vortex routine. All right, you're in this routine vortex, and our brains crave new ideas. They crave newness, and we actually stop and notice new stuff. We don't stop and notice the regular. So that's why the days are blending together, because it's all kind of routine. So we have to create some newness in our life so that our brain takes notice and starts to notice it. So here's my daughter is a big Justin Bieber fan. And one of the things that I'm not noticing anymore is that Justin Bieber is live streaming again, because he does it every single day. If he did it once in a while, I'd notice it. But if he does it every single day, I don't notice it as much. So maybe you can relate or not to that. But I've got a huge Justin Bieber fan in my house. Here's what I mean by this Hamilton idea is our brain craves activity, and activity actually boosts our happiness. So I'm suggesting that you get your brain active, and I'd like you to try something new, and in that regard, broaden your thinking. So this really kind of taps into the my daughter and I actually were lucky in February to go see Hamilton the play. We got tickets to the show. When everything goes back to normal, my biggest recommendation in terms of a Broadway show is for you guys to go check out Hamilton if you can find a way to get tickets. I was lucky. I was just online when they went on sale, and I got a couple tickets, and it was the greatest show I ever saw. So I fell in love with the music of Hamilton, and it's all about engagement and morale in terms of happiness. Our brain needs to start working well. So our brain, they work well when we're injected with new information into the equation. And it's become a bit of an antidote to that what day it is vortex for me. And basically it's simple, is 10 minutes a day, doing something new boosts positive mood, broadens thinking, and improves your working memory. So these three things is obviously something we want to get after. And this is serious business. So I'm being playful with the Alexander Hamilton anecdote, but look at this guy. He's got a lot going on in his house. He's got his kids sitting on his lap. He's got a phone on his ear. He's got his laptop on his lap, and he's going. And his brain's going to wander, and his productivity might not be maximized, and he can't get anything done that he means to get done. So we're often lost in the past, worried about the future, and I promise you, happiness lives in the present. So create these opportunities. And here's my homework for you on this one. To help you learn Alexander Hamilton on the piano. I actually did it. I sat down and tried to figure out how to play the chords for Alexander Hamilton. YouTube's a great thing. You can learn all sorts of things, but some of you already might be amazing on the piano. So there might be some other things. Question 1, homework for this one is, what is one thing that I've always wanted to try? One thing that I've always wanted to try and haven't had time to do it. So for me, it was piano, but for you, it might be a new recipe. Maybe it's a puzzle that you've been trying to solve. Maybe it's a Rubik's Cube. Pull those out. There's lots of tips on how to do those. Maybe it's a new exercise that you've been trying to do. I know, and I know you're not going to admit it out loud, but there's a lot of people who are TikTok addicts. Some adults are getting out there making their best TikTok videos. We'll actually publish them so other people can see them. I just do them on my phone and never put them up, but my kids do. New music, new task at work. If you're, really want to make this all about work, you can do a new task at work, learn something new, maybe a new piece of software, maybe a new, editing program or something like that. And then the second one relates to the first one. And the last question I got for your homework is, how can I make space for these 10 minutes in my day? So for me, in the piano thing, I set an alarm. It was at 4:30 every day. My alarm went off. I had to stop what I was doing, as long as I wasn't in a meeting or anything like that, and head over to the keyboard, which is sitting right here, and just play around. I learned how to do Imagine. I learned how to do Alexander Hamilton. I learned how to do Tidy Dancer by Elton John, and just little songs, just little chord progressions that have gone on. So I teased this at the beginning, and I know the people wanted me to get right to it, but I do have a song for you that before we get to questions. And it is Alexander Hamilton. And for those of you who know me and have seen me do this before, I usually use a backing track that I find online that has all the things. But in this case, because I wanted to make the point that you want to learn Alexander Hamilton at home, I actually played this live on the keyboard. And here I want to share it with you. So here we go, Alexander Hamilton. And I can't just do the regular Alexander Hamilton. I do one that I've rewritten the words. That's a song parody. And I hope you enjoy it.
This is Alexander Hamilton. Do your best, it's a long run. Ready?
Now that we've mastered a version of life to the core and forgot what it's like to walk outside, we've been shut inside our doors again. Confidence is tarnished, paycheck smaller, 'cause it's hard to make $1. Well, why bother? Round the corner, it could be warm. We'll get a lot farther by working a lot harder, by being a lot smarter, by growing our hair longer. Quarantine, place to raise the cup to make us stronger. Well, let's get the word around, then. This recipe is plain, man. Take your aims and goals and reflect how to reframe them. Learn a new formation, switch things up, work out your brain, man. And the world's gonna know our plan. What's our plan, man? Do your best, it's a long run. That's it, do your best, it's a long run. And there's a million things you haven't done, but that's okay, just you wait. What's our plan, man? Do your best, it's a long run.
There we go. There we go. Usually there's a hell of applause when I play those. I'm sure you guys are applauding at home. But Aaron, over to you.
That was awesome, Adam. And we had some comments coming in through the chat box during that video too. So I think you got a lot of compliments, and they like the hair. Thanks so much, Adam. I think the tips and the tricks that you've shared are really practical for all of us. It doesn't matter what someone's role in their organization is or their situation at home. I think the information has really resonated, and it can help employees thrive despite all of the changes. I recently listened to another webinar where the speaker referred to this time as an opportunity to bounce forward during all of this change. And I love that term. And creating an environment where we can be happy in our current work situation can really help us to bounce forward.
I like
so
that.
Thanks for that, Adam.
Great.
The resources that you see up on the screen now include mention of the worksheet, the homework that Adam has been mentioning throughout his discussion with us, as well as some others such as the Standards of Excellence Canada, and a link to some training. So there's a number of training programs that are on discount right now that you may want to check out. Some other links there. And again, all of this will be sent out to you afterwards. So if we take a look at the questions, we do have one that is a couple that have come through, Adam. One is around social committees. You mentioned this, I think, once throughout your presentation, but can you talk a little bit more to those individuals who want to stay social with work right now, or maybe they're part of social committees, and what sort of tips you have for that aspect of work?
Sure. Yeah. No, that's a tough one. I know that a lot of people on social committees right now have their have to put on their creative hats to figure out what to do. There's lots of here's the thing. We have lots of these Zoom kind of meetings, whatever software you're using, whether it's Zoom, Teams, all the rest, and they're usually work related. So I guess one of the tips that I was thinking about on that regard is to set these up that are not work related, right? Like, we're not talking shop, we're talking family. We can get some games going. I've seen people do board games like Clue and Battleship and things like that, just live online. Of course, if it's if it's appropriate, you can have a glass of wine there with you, and you've got a little bit more of a social environment than you typically would at a 9 a.m. Business meeting about our top 3 goals. What are you thinking, Aaron? Is that the same thing on your end?
Yeah, I think so. And, for social committees, get other committee members involved, because everyone's having a different experience right now, I think. There's people with a lot of different types of home scenarios, home situations, and maybe there's ideas that are coming and can come in from all directions. So I think incorporate other ideas too. I would say even if you're a social committee chair, for example, don't take it all on yourself to figure it out. Get ideas from others based on what they're going through.
Yeah, and of course, if you're like me, a sing-along is obviously something that you can do. You can get a karaoke thing going, and that would be a lot of fun.
You know, the person I live with wants a karaoke machine through it
Oh
all.
yeah, that would be good. That'd be good.
There's another question, Adam, that's come in around tactics that you suggest for management to use to foster these concepts. And one thing that comes to mind for me that I'll just kick this off if I may, you talked about sort of celebrating accomplishments rather than just talking about problems. And there are a lot of meetings, even without the pandemic, there are often a lot of meetings where we do talk about problems and solving problems, which are very important. But celebrating successes and accomplishments, I think, is as important now as it ever has been. So that is one thing that you've mentioned that comes to mind for me that would really resonate for managers, is to ensure that you are calling out the accomplishments, providing kudos where kudos is due, right? All employees are really doing their best right now. Again, they're all going through a different situation, both work-wise and home-wise, and I think providing that
I think
aspect.
so. Yeah, I also think it's about mirroring the behavior. So if your team is looking a little bit like their circles aren't together in terms of the happiness equation, how you portray yourself is going to impact them even further. So it's about, you don't want to hide things, and, transparency is really important, but at the same time, we have to give, like I said before, equal time to some of the things that are good that are going on compared to the things that might be things to worry about. So yeah, I think kind of mirroring that behavior. There's some very specific things that you can do in terms of transparency. You can do things like make sure that the fuzziness that I referred to in the beginning, where there's a fuzziness around where our direction right now. So as much as possible, be clear and concise about where you think we're going. Maybe not in the next year, but in the next 3 weeks, the next month, the next 2 months, and just kind of keep those timelines short and be honest as possible. There's obviously some great things going on right now, and we have to find it. We have to almost replicate that some good news thing that those YouTube clips at work somehow. Just get a good news thing going.
Yeah, that sounds great. There's another question coming in around the presentation and a recording of it. Yes, this will be sent out to all of you within, Adam, what do you think, the next couple of business days?
Yeah, Michael, my colleague who takes care of that, will edit down the video appropriately and put it up on our website. Last week, the excellence chat that went up, I think it was up the next day.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
There's a comment that's come in. Our wellness committee is hosting Zoom water cooler chats and lunches. That's
there you
nice.
go.
That's an idea. Yeah, thanks for that. In our office, we're finding that social events lack the breadth to talk about some of the worry and anxiety that folks are having. They feel too happy. Any ideas for how to connect in a real way virtually?
Yeah, it's tough. I think that maybe some smaller meetings, phone, one-on-ones, because when it comes to some of the stuff that you feel anxiety about, it's tough to share that with a large group. We all have different issues right now, especially those who are struggling with some of the basic features that weren't hard to deal with weeks ago, right? Now we have trouble maybe paying our rent and things like that. So there's certainly some anxieties that creep up, and how do we cope and manage? Maybe smaller groups, because I think you can have those meaningful conversations with people you trust in smaller groups. But what are you thinking, Erin?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, going back to what I heard recently, another expert say on one of our other excellence chats is, if you have a big group of individuals who are going around the room virtually, even saying what is working well for them, sometimes if there's too many people, it can come across as like, living out Facebook and hearing what is going well for everybody else and feeling like you're not living up to that. So I agree with what you're saying, keeping it small, and managers connecting with people one-on-one, I do think is extremely important right now, and even colleague to colleague, because everybody has that one person usually who they can trust at work. So calling on them, and finding the people who want to have those really authentic, raw conversations right now, and provide some tips personally, I think is important.
And also there's a difference between feeling a little down and having some serious problems that need help.
Right.
And if it is that kind of next level, then you definitely have to find the right channels through, your public health officials and so on, to help, your doctors and so on, to help you get what you need at this time. Because just talking about good stuff might not get you through if it's next level,
So it's about 11:45, Adam. There's a few more that have come in, but we may need to connect separately with individuals, and we have our contact information on the next slide, I believe.
Yeah, here it is. Yep.
Yeah, so please feel free to reach out to us with other questions, or if you want to chat any further about this. And again, I'd like to thank Adam for your awesome presentation and the videos of you and what's going on at your house. It was really fun. Thanks for that.
Thanks so much, Aaron. Yep, thanks for hosting. Did a great job as usual. And yeah, we got another one of these next week, right?
Yeah, next week or the week after.
Yeah, it's coming up. So check the calendar. We're doing one of these, and we've got some live training that's going on as well. If you want to brush up on your process management skills and things like that, we're doing all that. So check our website. Keep track of us on our Instagram, and I wish you all the best. Stay well, everybody, and be happy. All right, we're gonna sign off. Thanks for coming.
Thanks to everyone for joining us. Thank you.
Have a good one.